So, we're podcasting.
That's right.
Welcoming you into the studio. Dale's here.
Yep.
Ethan's here. I'm almost here. And
Jared's here.
And Jared's here.
Hello.
Yeah. What? No sock puppet?
That's Jared.
we have awesome tech. We really do. It's Sam and Fred. That's a long story we're not going to get into. Okay. So we are going to jump into this, and you guys get the behind the scenes look at our podcast.
Oh,
Alejandro is about to make an.
That's our tech. That's Jared.
he's feeling a little nervous. Yeah. Oh, nice Alejandro.
I'll sit up straight so I don't look so fat on the podcast. So the invisible man behind the microphone.
Oh my gosh. So, yeah. First podcast of 2019, and we are ready to rock and roll.
Yep.
Yeah. Welcome to the State of the Ozarks podcast. This is Josh Heston, Editor-in-Chief.
And this is Ethan Grubaugh.
And we're talking about our Ozarks.
Your community.
And this episode of Been Thinking About has been brought to you by...
Stafford's Barber Shop and Shave Company, the place for men.
And Shepherd the Musical, rediscovering America's story.
As well as Taney County Health Department, creating opportunities for healthy lives in our community.
That's right, and we are back in business.
Yes, we are.
Well, not that we were really out of business, but we're back.
Holidays got, there's a lot of stuff happening.
Giant holiday crash of 2018. And by crash, that was the sound that I made when I hit the couch in front of Star Trek. that was yeah, I landed and I didn't get up, but we're back.
Yes, we are.
And got lots of cool things happening. Taking a little bit of a walk down memory lane. We're, of course, for those who are just listening to the audio, not watching us on YouTube, we have a very special guest in the studio with us. Happens to be Dale Grubaugh, publisher of State of the Ozarks.
That's me.
And we got some cool stuff. We're going to take a little bit of a walk down memory lane, and since I don't have much of a memory at this point, it's just a walk back to December 16th. Which we published an article that Dale wrote called Winter Memories. If you're on State of the Ozarks Weekly, it should be in your archive. If you're not, let us know. We'll dig it up for you. But this was a fun article. Dale, you and I worked on this together back in, I think, 2010.
Yes, we did. In fact, the article that is on the magazine is an actual rewrite. Because the editor at that time didn't really like the original memories thing that I did, so went back and rewrote it. But fortunately, Elias came to life, and
you did come to life.
Yeah, it really did.
And so we're talking about winter memories in the Ozarks. Of course, I still want snow. We have not had any snow to speak of. Other parts of the Ozarks have gotten snow. Yeah. We have not gotten any snow.
It either goes south of us and covers up Arkansas, or it goes
Arkansas
goes north and covers up the rest of my family.
Yeah.
Right now they're sitting with an excess of 14 inches of snow in their yard, and here we are with nothing but dry.
And rain. And not dry, but no snow. No snow for us. It's almost like getting coal in your stocking for those of us who love snow.
That's
like
right.
Me. But this was telling a story. This article, for those of you who have not plugged into it yet, this article was about a year that you got lots of snow.
Oh gosh, did we ever. It was the winter of 78 and 79.
It was a very good year.
Oh, it was. It was
a very, very good year. Great things happened in that year.
It did. Yeah, it did. Yeah, you were born.
Yeah.
And you were born in Illinois, and we got dumped on with snow here. But it was one of those years where it just, once it started snowing, it didn't quit. And you could just watch it on the evening news and the weather. There's a storm hitting you here, and you can just look back out in the northwest, and there's another one lining up, and they just came one right after another. And I think when it was all said and done, there was in excess of 2 feet of snow here in the Ozarks, and roofs started caving in, boat docks started sinking or turning over. I mean, it was a mess around here. And people were checking on each other. Finally, Ozarkians during the wintertime, sometimes we tend to kind of hibernate. We get into our little cabins or our little houses, and we just kind of stay there and wait for that to go away. But this time, it wouldn't go away. And people got being concerned about one another. So they started checking on each other, making sure everybody had groceries, they had wood. And in fact, I myself, I was living off in the lower side of Compton Ridge, over off of 265. And I was living in a little trailer down there. And it was really bad. I was by myself. But my aunt and uncle lived in the house in the parking lot of Shepherd of the Hills Farm, which is now their promotions office or something like that. But that at the time was my aunt and uncle's house. And so they invited me to come and stay with them if I could get there. And I did. And I came and I stayed like 5 weeks with them. It was horrible. But it was still a good experience, not only for me but for others, because the Ozark people themselves reached out to one another. They came together as a community. They were taking care of each other. They were watching after each other, and just really lending a great big helping hand. And that's some good memories of that.
That's a lot to put together in one place, and I think you did it. You did a great job on the article.
Well, thank you.
And we had fun. I don't remember being terribly critical of it.
No.
We had fun working on that.
Yeah, we did. It did. The first one involved me walking across Stockton Lake. I mean, literally walking across it when it was frozen with a pole between me and another dude, and it was stupid. You
just overthought yourself on that article. Yeah. I remember that conversation. It was a lot of fun though, and then we got some cool pictures. I'm proud of those pictures. Those pictures. Disclaimer: those pictures are not from the Ozarks. Those are from Central Illinois. I went out and took those pictures in my backyard back home where I used to live, specifically for this article.
Yeah.
So
fun
hybrid. Fun
snow
fusion.
Looks like snow, whether it's in the north or here in the Ozarks.
I love the shadows.
Yes. I
love the blue shadows on the snow. That's probably almost my favorite part. That and sledding.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. And so we're going to jump over to issue 578. New article. I think you've had a chance to look at this article, Ethan. Is Bodark.
Yeah.
How did you want to say that?
Bois d'Arc.
Bois d'Arc. It
I had no idea how to pronounce it.
Wood of the bow.
Huh?
Wood of the bow. Wood of the bow in French. Or something very close to that.
Makes sense.
It actually references, for people who don't know. So there's I got a couple of emails, a couple of messages when this article came out, going, we opened this up and we thought you were going to write an article about Bodark, Missouri, and it was about this thing about flint knapping. What's up with that? And both people who messaged me grew up in Bodark. So we might need to just look into the history of Bodark, and State of the Ozarks should write an article about Bodark. But in this case, we're not talking about Bodark, Missouri. We're talking about the Bodark Primitive Skills Encampment that takes place in September of each year, has for a long time, and it is near Greenfield, which also happens to be near Bodark, Missouri, and it's
so the Bodark Primitive Skills Festival is not even in
Bodark. No, it's at Hulston Mill.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to add interest, it's of course at Hulston Mill, the historic park, but Hulston Mill didn't originate at the park. Just in case you wondered, when I think it's Stockton Lake was built, was finished. A historical preservation local community team moved the mill. The mill is quite old, and they moved it to its present location to avoid it getting washed away by the lake. And so it's a beautiful park, And we just got to, it's a neat story. Josh Ong went up and covered the event, and we talked a little bit. He's got some great coverage, I think, on when we did a Facebook video that week when we came out with the article. Lots and lots of response with that article. And then Josh did a great job writing it, but he also did all the photography.
And of course, this is his kind of cup of tea.
So. It's his kind of thing. He did thank me for sending him on assignment.
I bet he just jumped right into it.
He did. And the thing that I think is so cool about this, it's such a dedicated community that comes together to make this event happen. Bo Brown is a part of it. Regan Beeler is a part of it. There's just Jason Trask is a part of it. There's some really, really great committed people who come together to make this event happen. And it is one of those things that if you don't know it's happening, you have no idea it's happening. And that's something I think State of the Ozarks really strives to bring those types of stories to the forefront.
Yeah, because this is just one example of stuff that I had no idea existed until I started becoming part of the State of the Ozarks, and then all of a sudden, like, what is Bois Dark?
And you had no idea you lived in such a rich cultural center of the universe, did you?
I knew it was there. I just didn't go looking.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, and sometimes even when you go looking, you don't necessarily know.
Find it 'cause
you don't know it's there. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows to type in Bodark Primitive Skills Encampment unless you know that Bodark Primitive Skills Encampment is out there.
And I imagine if you try to go by GPS, then you'd probably end up lost.
You just might. I use my atlas.
Oh, okay.
There's also a great, this is an aside, but we've also got articles on this as well, but at Hulston Mill they also do Civil War reenactment events in June, and then in September they do the Primitive Skills encampment. So neat stuff happening at Hulston Mill.
Hulston, yeah, because I remember you guys talking about going to the Civil War.
Yeah.
Was it last year or the year before?
Both, actually, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a weekend thing? Now I'm
yeah.
just talking because I'm interested.
That's good. It is a weekend event. We should plan for it.
Yes, we should. And
be on the grounds for for what's going on. And it not all, this sounds silly, but not all Civil War reenactment events are created equal. Of course, Dale and I have been to a number of them. With differing experiences, so we're gonna brag on Brent Pascal's. I talked to Brent actually today. Brent does the one at Hulston Mill, and we've also been to another one which we won't name the location, but we've been to it. Get you guys to share here a little bit, but Dale, tell me. I want to get you wrote a great article on this. Give me your feedback on the difference. There was a marked difference between these two events.
Well, the one that we went to that is unnamed, it was almost like a carnival. There was this feeling of we're going to see a show, we're going to see this thing, and there wasn't a whole lot of historicity, if that's a word, that went along with it. And one of the things that bothered me about that event, and I wrote about it in the article that I did, was
we'll republish that article soon.
Yeah, it was like they were playing war, and at that particular event there were some actual soldiers. I mean, today's soldiers there. And they were out watching, the reenactment. And of course, when the battle was going on, the cannons are booming and the muskets are firing and the horses are racing and people are falling. When it's all over, somebody hollered, "Resurrect!" And, so everybody got up and they marched off the field to applause and cheers and things like that. And then I saw the soldiers. And I knew that in just a few weeks, some of those soldiers were going to be being deployed to the Middle East. And it just ripped my heart out, because if they fell on the battlefield, no one's going to holler "resurrect." No one's going to be cheering for them. There was no, there wouldn't be any marching off the field. They'd be carried off. And many of them, that would be the last thing that would ever happen to them. And that just really really stung me, and it helped me to realize that war is not something that we play with. Now, when you go to the other event,
The Hulston Mill.
the Hulston Mill event that Brent does, Brent does a great job of tying the history into it. And
it's a sense of context.
yes, and he, there's no carnival atmosphere, there's no hoopla, there's no, and he talks about the devastation that happened and why the battles went on and what was taking place at that time. And there's a sense of history with what he did, not a sense of, we're having a big party. It was just, there was it was a reenactment of history, and that touched me too.
It did, and not to say that it's just an entire weekend of somber events, but
No.
but it really, you feel like you get a respectful context to this, and of course the State of the Ozarks covers a lot of things, but one of the things that is very near and dear to our hearts in terms of coverage is history.
Yes.
And I very much believe that if you, it sounds cliche at this point, but if you do not know your past, you are doomed to repeat it. And the Civil War and the social structure and the social questions and the social issues that took place are crucial to help us understand where we've arrived at today. And that's something in terms of story coverage that's very important to us as a whole.
And then there's the other side of history where the ghosts are involved.
Yeah, I love that history. # Arcane Ozarks.
Yeah.
And just the most recent issue that has come out in issue 579. Next week is issue 580.
Wow.
Obviously, because that is what follows 579. But 580 consecutive weeks that State of the Ozarks has been published.
How crazy is that to think about?
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's a lot of recipes.
Yeah.
we'll get to that in a minute.
Get you a new cookbook.
I am accepting any and all cookbook donations, and I might even cook stuff out of them for people who give me cookbooks.
On Fridays, maybe.
On Fridays, ooh yes, chocolate angel food cake. Chocolate angel food cake. Just let that soak in. Yeah. Oh my goodness! But yes, this was also an article that I had the opportunity to co-write with one of our first interns, Stephen Meek, and this was a while back. But we got to go to the Pythian Castle, and that's something you have to say very carefully. But people, it was created from the Knights of Pythias, which has a reference to some sort of Greek fraternal order thing. I think if you, at some point...
I'm not mature enough for this.
Oh my gosh, you broke and I broke, and we're just going to roll with it. Oh,
What was the order of knights again?
Well, you might say it's a pithy subject. Gotcha. But no, this was, so a little bit of background. Back before people, I apparently was able to buy like health insurance and more specifically buy life insurance. Before that was a big thing. We're talking late 19th century, probably 1850s to 1900. One of the things that was an option was for the husband, the father, to join a fraternal order, and he would pay dues into this. So it functioned kind of like an insurance company. He would pay dues into the fraternal order, and then if anything were to happen to him, then his widow and his children would be able to go to one of this fraternal order's structures and be cared for as long as they needed. And so it would be considered to be part retirement home, part orphanage. And there were a number of these locations around the United States, and they were paid for, their upkeep and their maintenance and their staff was paid for by the dues that the Knights of Pythias would pay into. And so that's where the castle actually came from. The castle is built of Carthage limestone, which has a high quartz content, was mined near Carthage, Carthage, Missouri, and was built a little after the turn of the 20th century in, at the time, the outskirts of Springfield, the Queen City itself. It's no longer part of the outskirts, obviously. It's actually behind Evangel University, and it is reported to be haunted. So that's a lot of what this article ended up being about.
Which is why I brought up the ghosts.
Exactly. And I like this subject. It was a fun article to co-write, and one of the things, and of course, there's some people who really believe in the paranormal. There's some people who don't. If there's one thing that I think we can settle on, amongst the people who believe in the paranormal, and I don't disbelieve, that's pretty much where I land, is that you can't quantify it. If we could quantify it, that would be different, but you can't. So just because you show up at a place that is reportedly haunted doesn't necessarily mean that anything's going to happen. And on the night that we were there, nothing happened. That's or if it did, I wasn't sensitive enough to pick it up.
Yeah, like one time I stayed in the apparently most haunted room in one of the hotels down in Eureka.
Oh, the Crescent?
No.
Oh, or the Basin.
Basin. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Remember
yeah.
that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
It's supposed to be see the ghost of
John Wayne?
John Chisholm.
John Chisholm.
Same thing, but anyway. Nothing happened.
Yeah, no, your shoes didn't get moved, or you didn't see any orbs, or...
Didn't see some guy stumbling around looking for his horse.
Yeah. I love John Wayne. He's so cool. But he wasn't there either, was he?
No, he wasn't.
And with the Pythian Castle, we went through the whole thing. I kept waiting for like this moment to have the hair on the back of my neck, stand up and feel chills and the whole bit. Wow, this is a pretty place. Did not get creeped out at the time, but it is an amazing structure. It has a lot of history, but it did present us with a really interesting question of how do you write an article about something that didn't happen. And so it is an article, one of the articles that I'm most proud of over the last 11 years of writing and co-writing articles on State of the Ozarks, because I feel like it really deals with a lot of those questions of why are we interested in ghosts? Why do we look for them? How do we feel about it? What are the driving factors that are going on? So, and I think that it's fun. It's interesting. It's fun. It's creepy. I encourage people to look at it, but there were certainly some free fall moments of going, okay, now what do we write? So that's the Pythian Castle. We should go.
Yeah, we should.
They're going to have an overnight ghost hunt coming up. I would rather go in the evening than be done.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not big on this whole overnight thing because I'm old.
Yeah.
Or older, and I have a feeling I would feel like crap the next morning.
Especially if you don't find anything.
Yeah, or perhaps if you do.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's I'm excited about that. And then the other thing, we had a lot of fun. This was this other article that was published this week is titled "Heritage Chickens." It's a pretty short piece, and it's very, very near and dear to my heart for a variety of reasons. One, because I like chickens. So what you've never raised chickens, have you?
No, I mean the closest experience I had to chickens was my grandparents had a little coop.
Yeah.
And so I'd go in with Papa occasionally to help collect eggs or feed chickens or whatnot. Except I was terrified of them for some reason. He'd just stick his hand under there, grab the egg, and I'm sitting there going. I think they could smell my fear because the closest my hand got to it was.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! This kind of all ties together. Chickens have an odd dominance hierarchy, and I think they do. I think they can tell it. Some of them, chickens also have personalities. They have a lot of different personalities. And one of the parts of the editorial that I grew up with that is talking about one of my memories, the fact that when I was really young, we did not have chickens, and my mom, every time I helped my mom cook, which was a lot, she would lament the fact that we had lousy eggs because they weren't like good real eggs. She didn't call them farm fresh. She called them real eggs. There was real eggs and there were the fake eggs. And you got the fake eggs from the grocery store and the real eggs came out of chickens that you raised. So I grew up with these stories. Of course, this was like the first 6 years of my life. Grew up with these stories about, chickens and good eggs. And you could make so much better stuff with good eggs than with lousy eggs. And especially as we got into August and got close to my sister's birthday, because we would make angel food cake for her birthday, homemade angel food cake. And you have to separate the eggs, and it was such a trying process because the yolks wouldn't hold together from the grocery store eggs, and it would prompt the stories again. And then when I was 6, we got chickens, and we started raising chickens. And then all of a sudden we got good eggs, which is where the recipe comes from. The chocolate angel food cake recipe in issue 579 is actually my mom and I's recipe itself. It's a chocolate sponge cake, but you have to separate the eggs, so you need good eggs.
Let's say the recipe is titled Donnie and Joshua's Good Chocolate Angel Food Cake.
Yep, and that on the card that I still have in her handwriting, that's the title of the cake. And but I was an odd child. I had, and this continues to this day, I had no fear whatsoever of animals. And I did not have any fear of animals when I was 5 and 6 years old. We got our first horse when I was 4. I would go walk under the horse. Zero fear. Fortunately, the horse also really liked me, so he never stepped on me. Get on the horse, walk around the horse, whatever. But we got this batch. I'm going to tell a pointless story, but we got this batch of chickens, and they all turned out to be roosters. One of them was named Spangles. And he had these gorgeous tail feathers and this nasty attitude and these huge spurs. And it was one of these chickens that would have just been absolutely terrifying to everybody else. And I thought he was singularly the most fun chicken to play with because he would chase me. And I'm 5, and if you really ascribe to PETA, quit listening now, because I found a tennis racket. And it's not as bad as you think, but It was still fun. I found out that he would chase me, but he couldn't turn really fast. So I would walk up to him and make sure that he saw me, and then I would take off running, and the rooster would start chasing me as hard as he possibly could. And the last minute, I would stop and put the tennis racket down between my feet, and every single time, I'd put my legs apart, put the tennis racket down, and every single time he would run straight into that tennis racket. Being himself with a tennis racket, it would keep me entertained for hours, and he never learned. It was glorious, and so that was Spangles.
Yeah.
We also had a huge Brahma rooster named Autry, and at 5 years old, by the time he grew up, he was about the same height as I was, and Autry was my buddy. I would tell him stories, and he would walk up to me and want me to pack him places. So I would just hoist him up, and all of my 5-year-old self could barely get this chicken off the ground. And he would just talk in his little chicken language, and I would pack the chicken around the yard. And anything that I was upset about, I would tell him all about it. And that Autry was a good friend. So chickens are near and dear to my heart. And then along with the article itself, they're also delicious.
Yes.
But so delicious. And really, really crucially important for training, which, I think we'll talk about, not this on this podcast, but hashtag Manly Ozarks, training, football, cool stuff coming up. But it was... but coming back to the story, the pictures that are in the story are photos that my mom took.
Oh.
And those are her chickens, some of the last chickens that she raised at home before she passed away. And so that's her photography being featured. And of course the chickens really liked her. So, and they were all her pets. So they'd get super close and look at the camera, and it's a neat moment. So I got to revisit those photos when we got ready to publish the article.
Yeah, these are really good photos.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's
we're sitting over here just kind of
scoping
them out, and
yeah. Yep, that's my mom's, and we have the corresponding video on YouTube.
Yeah.
So you can scope us out, you can watch us, you can listen to us. Just just whatever you do, don't get tired of it.
Right.
Oh, so big year ahead, 2019. We got some cool stuff coming up. And of course, we won't plug this constantly, but State of the Ozarks Fest 2019 will be on September 14th.
Yep.
Saturday, September 14th.
Plan ahead.
Yeah. Save the date. So, to learn more, visit us on stateoftheozarks.net.
Sign up for State of the Ozarks weekly email.
Like State of the Ozarks on Facebook.
Follow at Soto Media on Twitter.
Subscribe to Soto Media on YouTube.
And follow us on Instagram at State of the Ozarks.
Thank you for listening to Been Thinking About, the State of the Ozarks podcast with Josh.
And Ethan.
And this is our Ozarks.
Your community.
Awesome possum.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there you go. That's us being wild and crazy. and, and oh, I love chickens. All right. Anything you guys want to share?
I like the chickens more than the guineas.
Fair enough. Never actually interacted with the guineas.
They're cute as hatchlings.
Yes.
But then they grow ugly and annoying.
I know my grandma hated them because they were too stupid to come in out of the rain, and they would all roost on the ridge of the barn. And then as it started, extra story, and then as it started to rain, they drowned. So. My grandma had very unpleasant things to say about him, and then she would get a really long stick and go poke him off the barn in the middle of the rain. Just not amused. Yes.
Hey, Sir Armadillo, I have a question.
Yes, Alejandro.
Do you love and appreciate me like you love the chickens?
Yes, I do.
Will you kill me and eat me like you ate the chickens too?
No, I would never do that.
Kind of scary.
I will. It's called Possum on the Half Shell.
No one likes you.
Possum on the Half Shell.
Oh my gosh. Oh, we do have fun. See you guys.